Well, great. Well, thank you everyone for attending this session today. Happy New Year to all of those who are joined here. It's been quite another amazing and strange year, and hope everybody has been safe and healthy. But we appreciate you all joining our session today on security in 2022, helping build a strong cyber posture. I'm Tom Leahy. I am the SVP of Sales and Business Development with SureShield. We are a security and compliance company specializing in software to help protect your valuable data assets. I have with me our CTO, Chandi Bilagu, who will also be participating in this session as we get into some of the overview of some offerings that can help you in protecting your valuable assets. And as far as the session is considered today, we'll talk a little bit about a number of items that are very obviously prevalent in this cyber environment today, a little bit about the Log4j and its impact. Any of you that have internet-facing devices probably were having not the greatest holiday season, at least starting out. We'll talk a little bit about what impact that had. And then we're going to speak specifically about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, what its purpose is, and a new binding operative directive that came out that applies to us as well to the federal government, anyone working in the federal government, but just as importantly to the private sector. And then what that impact on the private sector can have and is having. And then we'll also speak about how leveraging technology can help in identifying these vulnerabilities to eliminate them. We'll provide a brief product demo of a solution that we can help you with in terms of determining whether you have these vulnerabilities in your environment and helping you take very critical and fast action on those as they are significantly dangerous to your environment. And please note at the end of the session, there's a Q&A area where you can ask questions regarding anything that we've presented here. We will also be providing you with this content as well as the recording of this presentation afterwards. And then we will take a brief poll at the end of the session for any of you that might be interested in having the opportunity to get a free vulnerability scan done on your system to help you identify any vulnerabilities that may be in your environment and help you with remediating those. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the session. For those of you who may be on as presenters, please go ahead and mute your phones, as there's a little bit of background coming along in that as well. And then like I said, we'll take questions and make this available to you at the end of the session, a solution to help you with this at the end of the session. As we know, so really going into this year, as we know, there is a new type of very, very significant warfare that is taking place amongst, nations, and those are the cyber warfare components that are happening right now. We, as a nation and as a civilian population, probably don't even understand even close to the amount of things that are going on that are really critically impacting potential very dangerous security issues for our country. And not only for our country, but for our businesses that are operating here. And most notably, there was a very significant issue that was identified and released back in the beginning of, probably towards the end of November. And that was this Log4j vulnerability. And why was it so critical? Why was it so important? and why did it end up causing a lot of disruption and havoc, I'm sure, to a number of people's, at least on the IT and security side, their holiday season. This is a particular vulnerability that was in, it's basically Apache, the Log4j software. And what this does is it's basically a Java library for logging error messages in applications. It was identified that there was some very significant opportunities for bad players to get in and exploit this. And why was that such a big issue? Well, this is a particular software tool or a piece that is proliferating, in almost any internet-facing application. You have your Amazons, your Microsofts, your Apples of the world that all have this and are utilizing this to deliver a number of different services. And so by exploiting that, it was really opening up exploitation to thousands, if not potentially millions of companies. So a very, very highly critical, you probably heard a lot about it last December, prior to the holidays. And what it allows is actually a remote attacker to even take control of a device and do a lot of very bad things with that. One of the issues with it is that it's really easily exploited. So if they're in there, it's very easy to actually take control and do a lot of things that are not helpful. If you're familiar with what they call the criticality scoring, they look at different vulnerabilities that come out and they put what we might call a risk score on those. And those scores go from 1 to 10 in terms of the criticality of this. And it was given a 10. And again, why was this so critical is that it's used in most popular internet-facing applications. So really, in theory, almost everybody was exposed to this. And so there were some immediate directives that were issued for how to resolve and fix these problems. First of all, to identify them and fix them. And you may be seeing now when you go to different companies' websites, they have notifications on those websites as to whether they have already taken care of and these issues, that they're posting those to let you know that the fixes for that have been taken care of. So a very, very significant critical issue. And again, the types of things that could be done by hackers who get into the different companies that have this exposed to them, vary from what they're now calling deathware, where they don't really care about whether they're getting a ransom. They just want to create bad things for you, to ransomware attacks, to a lot of critical data being stolen. And as we know, these type of issues are continuing to proliferate literally on a daily basis. So many of you may be familiar with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency. It is an arm of the federal government that really is focused on leading our efforts to understand and mitigate any significant risk to our cyber and physical infrastructure. They're the operational lead for federal security, cybersecurity. They coordinate critical infrastructure and security resilience. So as they are identifying issues, and potential dangers in the environment, they're helping coordinate with both the federal and the public sectors on how to get these issues resolved. And they issue directives. And this leads to what we're going to talk about as one of those directives that just came out recently. But underneath CISA, their primary goal, first of all, is to issue directives to the federal agencies to correct any new threats that they see coming into the environment. And again, those threats are not, while they are directed and administered from a federal perspective to federal agencies, these impacts have the same impact on the private sector. And so they coordinate with the private sector to let them know what they need to do to fix these types of issues. There was just recently, last week, a new directive that they issued to critical manufacturing industries because of them noting that they're expecting there to be a very heightened cyber attacks on manufacturing for a variety of different reasons, because they're using more robotics for doing things. You have employees who are now working at home and not coming in. You have people that are not as well trained on understanding how to protect physical infrastructure. And so they've recently, just last week, went to Congress to issue warnings about heightening the protection of the manufacturing sector because of the dangers of what they expect to be coming down the road. So recently, in November, they issued one directive, Directive 2201. And this was focused on reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities. Again, these are issued to all federal agencies, and they have actions that they have to take. But they highly encourage any non-federal agencies to follow these. And so what it basically has done, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of new vulnerabilities and attacks being issued into our environment on a daily basis, what CISA, as the acronym is for this group, tries to do is provide directives to help organizations prioritize the most critical vulnerabilities that are out there and issue timings as to when they have to get fixed. From a federal perspective, those agencies don't have a choice. They have to make sure that those are implemented and fixed by them. But they are encouraging the private sector to look at these as well and make sure that they are looking at those and following those directives. If they're putting timelines on them, they're telling you, regardless, that the longer this vulnerability exists, the more likelihood there's going to be an exploitation or a bad thing that can happen to you. So they essentially establish a catalog of known exploited vulnerabilities, and they have a published catalog that comes out on a monthly basis. Sometimes it really can be a daily, depending upon what they're identifying. And they add to this catalog and they issue that to the federal agencies with the timelines of what needs to be done. And there's kind of three basic criteria that they look at. One, that vulnerability has a assigned score. Again, when we talked previously about risk and high risk vulnerabilities, so anything that they've deemed to have I would say a mid to highly critical issue is one criteria for it getting on this catalog. The second is knowing that this risk or this vulnerability has already been actively exploited, that they've identified somewhere where someone has gone in and exploited this particular issue. And lastly, that they have information on a clear remediation process for remediating that issue. And then that, just as an example, it comes out in this catalog. And just a note down here for those who will receive this content at the end of our session, there's a link to that catalog, the CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. And when you click into that, it's going to give you information on the specific CVE item, the vendor that's that was impacted by that, what the product is, and then it will also give you information on what the fix is. So when they click on this, this will actually go and tell them what are the fixes that need to be done to get rid of this vulnerability. And you'll note that these also have due dates. So from a federal perspective, there's no longer an issue in saying this is a problem and get to it. they're issuing and saying you better have this fixed by this date, no later. And so again, we encourage those that are in the private sector to take note of these, because these issues are the same regardless, right? As we said, these issues are not, exploits are not limited to federal agencies. Just as we spoke to earlier about the manufacturing industry, they know that, you know, many of the folks that are in manufacturing are not federal agencies, but the problems, if we are having, you know, critical manufacturing infrastructure impacted, what impact that can have on us. We witnessed it last year with the whole gas pipeline issue, if you remember, in the Northeast, where they shut that down for a couple of almost a week, and the cascading issue that had on the private sector, and the economic impact that that had, and they're expecting that we will continue to see more of those. So it's highly encouraged that the private sector should be following these same directives, that you should be engaging appropriate resources to determine if these exploits are in your environment today, and to identify them, to make sure that you're remediating these known issues. We've talked about the Log4j. If you haven't, you should be looking to make sure in your own environment that you don't have any of these there, to look at the known vulnerability catalog, and then to really put proper systems in place and policies in place as to how you as an organization are going to address these as they are noted and released to you or to the public. So how can you do that? Of course, establishing a process for that is important, and then having tools that can help you to identify those exploits are incredibly important. And as I mentioned, at SureShield, we provide technology that helps in a number of these different ways, from helping on the compliance standpoint to make sure that you are in compliance with any particular federal, state regulations, frameworks in terms of security regulations that you may need to be dealing with. We help you with that with tools that can help automate those compliance activities. But we're going to focus today on a solution that we have called Security Shield, that actually does continuous vulnerability scanning, remediation, and gap analysis. And because of directive, that initial 2201 directive, we've actually very rapidly and nimbly modified our system. And I won't say modified it, we've just leveraged what's there to help you as an organization even focus in directly on these CISA known exploits. So our system will identify all vulnerabilities and issues that you may have in your environment, but we've actually helped segment that to allow you to even focus in on these critical ones that are known or need to be fixed. And when they do that under the auspices of a product of ours called Security Shield. So what Security Shield does, and we're going to show you kind of a brief overview of how it works, is it does immediate identification of known vulnerabilities. So it's a web-enabled system. It's super simple to deploy, and that's why a lot of folks like it for a couple of different reasons. One, it's very simple for people to implement, and because of the nature of that, you can take action on things like we've just noted today, these CISA directives, almost instantaneously. So it's a web-enabled, simple deployment. It will identify all vulnerabilities in your environment, but it then also helps prioritize on criticality, meaning any organization is going to have continuous issues. What Security Shield will do is help look at that information and give you good insight as to what are the most critical and what you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck in fixing right away. And as we'll show you, we've synchronized this with the new CISA directive so that you actually can also hone in on those items that CISA is releasing in this catalog and be able to address those issues as well. And it will not only identify these, but it will provide you the remediation guidance, what needs to be done and how long it will take to complete that. So I'm going to pause here, and we're going to give you just a kind of a brief product overview of how that particular system works. So let me get to now. You should be seeing a dashboard screen. We are coming into a company here right now. This is a SureShield dashboard, and you can see it's being leveraged for this one particular company called Stanley Aeronautics. Just a note for those who may be participating here, we have several clients, and many of our clients who are utilizing our products directly, meaning they're coming to SureShield and they're asking us, and they have good resources in place, and they're utilizing our solution for specific needs that they have in their organization. We also have quite a number of what we might call managed service providers, companies that are servicing organizations that may not have all the necessary resources to help with this. And then they're able to leverage our platform to do this on the behalf of multiple clients. So with our audience that's here today, some of you may be service providers, some of you may be directly in need of solutions like this. We can provide that to you either way. But what you're seeing on this dashboard is a company that's leveraging our compliance suite for monitoring some of their controls, meaning some of their, whether they're working with the federal government and dealing with NIST 800-171 issues or HIPAA issues or the like. But for purposes of this, they've also launched our Security Shield product. And we'll show you a little bit about how that actually happens, meaning it's a very simple one-time push of a utility that will go out and identify all what we would call the assets in your environment. And this is giving me a view into those, different views into those. So in the case of this particular organization, it's showing me that I have 40 host assets that are operating, and on those host assets, there's 567 pieces of software that are running on those. And amongst that software, we've identified 4,000 different vulnerabilities. And you'll note here, we've added this new tile that have taken that information and even narrowed it down to these CISA known exploited vulnerabilities, the ones that are being released in that catalog. So you can immediately hone in from a prioritization perspective on those. So if I click into any one of these particular tiles, it's going to show me, in this case, as I went into the known exploit area, it's going to show me amongst those 9 vulnerabilities what those are, what IPs those are laying on, what's the name of the host it's running on, what type of host that is, what's the operating system that's running on that. And then as you'll note, these are those noted catalog vulnerabilities. I can simply click on these and it will take me to what those are, the risk of that particular vulnerability, and then the solutions for actually remediating that instantaneously. Well, I shouldn't say instantaneously. You'll need to take the action for doing that remediation. So, and that's all done for those who might be interested in taking a look at this, in a matter of really a few minutes, we can help you understand whether these types of things are existing within your environment. As you'll see on these tiles, if you were to click into these, they'll actually help you understand issues around what that library is, what's the known exploited vulnerabilities, and then information in terms of how they direct things that relate to immediate fixes that need to be done, review and fixes, and how they've cataloged severity of these. Now, I will point out that at a larger, from a larger extent, what our solution does is it looks at all the vulnerabilities you may have in your environment. There may be some that are very critical that aren't showing up on CISA's known exploit list. So it works very much in the same fashion. At any point in time, you can go ahead and click into one of these tiles. You can segment based upon, if you can see over here, filtering on what it is that you may want to filter on to just get down to specific issues. So maybe I just want to look at the ones that have the highest severity indexes on those. And I can take a look at those. If I were to go into these and click on these, it will show me a couple things. If they've been running over time, keep in mind, you actually should be doing this on a regular continuous basis because there's always new vulnerabilities that are being introduced. So it will show you how things have changed over time as you've run different scans. It will show me what services, for instance, are being run on that particular area. And then it will also show me, again, the remediation processes that need to take place in order to correct these. And if those corrections are done, it will show me the impact, as I can show you in some reports, on reducing a risk profile. Now, before I do that, I just want to give you a very brief understanding as to how this gets launched. So you'll see in this security panel, there's basically an area that says download the network scanner. It gives you information on, and again, for those who might be interested, we will assist you with this if you'd like, but basically it tells you a couple of the requirements. You download this, and this acts like think of it as a friendly hacker. It will go out and it will look at all the assets in your environment. It will identify those assets, and then it will tell you which of those assets are vulnerable and why they're vulnerable and how they need to be fixed. Now, on an ongoing basis, you can determine for yourself how often you want and what different things you may want this particular scanner to look at. Not everybody wants to run a full scan all at one time. They also may have some assets that they have locked down that they don't want to touch, and they're going to leave them separately. So basically that gets into the more ongoing configuration management, where you can set up what you want to be looked at, how often you want it to be looked at, what type of information you want to be pushing off to critical people in your organization who can help take action on those. And as I mentioned, a lot of this gets manifested in different types of reports that you can get out of the system. So if I'm going into my different types of security reports, you can see there's a whole different variety of things that can be pulled up. We will also be including, as this directive is relatively new, a very specific CISA exploit report as well. You have that on your tiles, but you'll also have a report that can be run to help you prioritize what may need to be done. And there's a ton of different information on here. A lot of our folks like what we call this top remediation report. So you can basically determine and look at what are the different things I might want to look at in this report. If I were to say, show me my top remediations, we know that we can't get to everything always at once. So really help me identify what are the biggest bang I can get for my buck to reduce my risk profile in the most efficacious manner. And so a report like this will tell you, things like what are the criticality of those, how many remediations may need to be applied, and to how many hosts to get the biggest bang for my buck to reduce the most risk that I can based upon that type of view into this. And there's a lot of nice reports that will tell you for information as you toggle up this, what is the critical issue. So you can see if I were to just go ahead and take care of this Adobe Flash issue, it's going to, this one issue will mitigate 25% of that risk, and it's only going to take me about 40 minutes to apply this. So again, it gives you criticality, and it gives you a timing issue as well. And again, this will show me kind of a progressiveness to this. So if I were to go attack this next issue, now I'm not only going to reduce 14% on that particular issue, but now my remediation areas have gone up to 40%, and on, so that I can see where there's this kind of critical area that if I put this time in, what impact that will have on helping reduce my risk profile. And again, as we said, as you know, this is ongoing. It's not something that you should be doing in a very static or one-time fashion, because as we see, there's new issues and there's new vulnerabilities that are released daily. And just to give you an idea of how our solution works, we work with a third party that is identifying and bringing these into what you might call a catalog on a daily basis. Not all scanning solutions do that. So we have the most up-to-date information on new vulnerabilities that have been introduced, and more importantly, what the actions are for remediating and removing them as a critical security issue in your environment. So I'm going to pause there and let you know that this is how we help in meeting a lot of these cyber threats, these CISA exploit issues, and how we can help organizations like yours in identifying and fixing these particular problems. I'm just going to go back to our presentation, and hopefully we may buy you back a little bit of time. I do have Chandi here with me, and Chandi, he's our CTO. Can you maybe, while I'm getting to the next slide, just speak a little bit more in terms of the process of Security Shield and the third-party tools that we use to help have that most,
Sure, Tom. Yes, what we use as the underlying vulnerability scanner is a technology from a company called Rapid7, which is one of the top vulnerability scanners in the market today. So what we do is build in a lot of automation around that and make it cloud enabled so that it's easier to deploy, and we sure that you don't have to be a real security expert to understand what the issues are and how to prioritize fixing them. So make it as simple as possible for a simple IT person to take care of problems.
Excellent. And what we've done is, as SureShield, is we've enhanced on top of that solution, meaning we've made it web enabled so it can be deployed. A lot of these types of tools that are out there now, you have to install in your own environments, and there's a long time to get them up and running. And then we've created a variety of different views and actions and ways in which you can also prioritize and push work out to others to correct problems. So we've significantly enhanced on top of that underlying technology. So as we mentioned, this provides complete immediate threat identification. It helps with guidance in terms of helping you know how to fix things. It synchronizes with key vulnerability knowledge bases, like we said, including the exploit. And it's actually a very low cost and easy to deploy solution. So with that, I'm going to get to our summary, and hopefully we bought you back some time. But because of again, the very critical nature of these issues that are out there right now, and the recent release of this CISA directive, we are offering those who are interested the ability to go ahead and do a one-time, at least to work with us initially, to do a one-time scan and remediation process of your whole of your environment, and giving you back a report that can help you understand what problems you may have and how to fix them and correct them. It's very simple. We just need to know who's on the call who might be interested in this, and then we will reach out to you and get you set up to go ahead and run that exploit report. I'm going to go on to the next. So I'm going to keep the poll open for those who are here, and we can go ahead and we can go ahead and take any additional questions that you may have. Please go into the Q&A area to answer those questions. And guys, for the other folks who are on here with me, I just move my screen a little bit and I don't see my poll up here anymore. So I just want to make sure it's still up there that you guys can see.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay, great. So as we mentioned, you know, the cyber warfare it's only going to continue to escalate. It's very important whether you're in the federal sector, obviously in the federal sector, you have to, but in the public sector that you follow this guidance to create a much more cyber hardened infrastructure for you. And really we can help you leverage technology to simplify that process, as well as the compliance issues for you as well. So looks like a lot of our folks are still here, which is great. And please, we'll go ahead and continue to leave that poll open for you. But if you go to the Q&A area of the Zoom meeting, this is where you can go ahead and type in any questions you may have. And it looks like we've already had some that folks here have answered for us. And I'm assuming that everybody can see the answers to the questions, Chandi and TJ.
Yeah, that's fine. The one point we didn't address, Tom, is about pricing. So we want to take that.
Okay, yes. And so on what we're offering right now, obviously, is an opportunity to do a one-time evaluation, which that would come at no cost. But the way in which we price for this is it's basically looking at the number of assets that are going to need to be scanned. And as I said, just those that are actually scanned for vulnerabilities. We will initially identify all the assets in your environment. And then as you determine which ones you actually want to run your scans on, there's a cost per what we call IP. And I want to reiterate that cost is only in the month that that's run. And this is different than some other products that are out there, meaning some are based on when each time you run the scan. Some have other models. In our case, it's in that given month. So the way that we're set up is you can run as many scans as you want in 1 month, and there's only one fee for that IP for that time frame. So not everybody has the resources, let's say, to run something on a monthly basis. It's encouraged that you are, depending upon the critical nature of the data that you're working with. It's highly recommended that you run monthly, but a lot of folks might do this on a quarterly basis. So the fees are only charged during the month in which that particular scan is run. And you can run that scan many, many times in that month for no additional charge. And if you want more data on that, please contact us and we'll get back to you and give you the specifics around that. But it's a very low cost for what you get out of the solution. And we'll go ahead and open it up for other questions. I think there's a new one that just came in, Chandi. And it looks like you answered that.
Yeah, that's about scanning virtual machines. So it can scan any virtual machine with an IP exposed to the network, whether it's virtual or real, it doesn't matter. And even cloud infrastructure, if you have any instances sitting in the cloud, you can scan as well. The scans, there are two types of scans we support. One is internal scan, where you need to install the scanner inside the network, and external scan, that is a scan that is scanning all the assets that are exposed to the internet. So these, to scan the external infrastructure that you have, you don't need to install the scanner. We have scanners sitting in the cloud. Using that, we scan your whatever you want to be scanned.
Great. And then can you also explain, again, we're a very nimble company. When, as we all know, when COVID hit us a couple of years ago, we started having a lot more people going home and working from home and not necessarily logging into the network. This
Exactly.
is, and I'll let you explain, but that's exactly one of the issues that CISA is, warning of right now with the manufacturing, because there's a lot of people that are working remotely. But can you explain what we did to even further enhance that, Chandi?
Sure. Yeah. So as people moved remote, the regular network scans miss a lot of the infrastructure because now the laptops have gone home. So to take care of that, we introduced something called remote scanning. So which is like an agent that gets deployed on each of these remote machines to scan only that particular machine and nothing else, not machines from the home network, so that it stays clean, and bring it back into the fold so that you can manage the vulnerabilities and safety of those gadgets as well.
Excellent. So we have a number of different ways in which we've got as Chandi was saying, the internal methodologies. We have the external for your internet-facing tools, and then for those of you that might have remote employees that you want to make sure that their machines are in good shape, you've got this remote scanner that then that information synchronizes up with your, what I would call your portal or your main centralized console, so you can see where your issues are within your entire organization. Any other questions? And again, please, before we continue, we hang up, the poll is still open. If you are interested, we will go ahead and make contact with you. For those of you who said yes, I see quite a few saying yes, quite a few saying maybe later, a few saying not right now, which hopefully means you've got good systems in place already. And that's great if you do. But sorry, Chandi.
There's one more question
Okay.
about discovery assessment. Yeah, the scanner comes with an automatic feature for discovery. So you could also run discovery scans separate from the vulnerability scans. You could run them on schedule. And that is a very helpful feature because it lets you identify any unauthorized devices getting connected to the network. So discovery is a inbuilt process. It can also be leveraged to have a parallel run where you could just do discovery scans to identify that your IT infrastructure is all authorized.
Right. And Chandi, to my to what, just so I'm clear on what I was, discovery does not cost any additional dollars.
No, it
right?
doesn't. It
It's,
doesn't. You
yeah.
you could discover thousands of devices, but scan only 100. It doesn't. You will be charged
Yeah.
only for the 100.
Only for those. So it's a very helpful, as you said, because sometimes, hopefully not, but there's new assets that might have gotten introduced into in the environment that folks don't know about. And so it will discover that and alert you to that and let you, if that does happen, take appropriate action as to what you want to do with that asset. Great. Well, we're still a bit ahead of time. So we'll leave it open to another couple of minutes to other questions that folks may have. If not, again, please let us know if you're interested. For those of you who have indicated, yes, you can expect, first of all of you who are on this call today, you will receive the content, the presentation. You will receive the audio portion of this. You'll also, even if you've chosen not to right now, have the opportunity, should you choose your mind to change your mind, to reach out to us to get this set up for you. And again, perhaps in the future, if you need something, please reach out to us. Those who have answered yes, we will be following up with you shortly. We'll need to set up just a brief meeting with you to walk you through how to get this running, and then we can go ahead and create that, get that going for you, and get that report run for you as well. So if there are no further questions, we will go ahead and end the session. Greatly appreciate all of you who came today. Again, if there's anything you need from us, please reach out to us at either SureShield, sure-shield.com, visit our website, info@sureshield.com, or as you get, follow-up messages from us after this session, please use that as a means to reach us as well. So look forward to speaking with those here who are ready to get started. And again, appreciate all the rest of you who have joined the session today. We wish you the best. Happy New Year and happy cyber hygiene. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Good job, Tom.
Yep. We're still going.